What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Riding Dad channel, or welcome if it's your first time. Either way, very glad to have you. I'm going to go ahead and apologize up front if my audio sounds a little bit weird or muffled or whatever. I just came off of another sickness. Having kids young in school sucks because you're just sick all the time. Even I never used to be sick. Anyway, so a little bit congested in my nasal area. However, otherwise feel great, and I feel especially great knowing that we're finally taking this belt off of the old Sportster. I did go ahead and purchase several things we're going to talk about in a minute, but first we have to roll that beautiful Riding Dad intro.
Riding Dad YouTube channel, it's the Riding Dad YouTube channel, it's the Riding Dad YouTube channel, it's the Riding Dad.
All right, so I actually ordered this kit from Sprocket. Oh boy, now I forgot the name of it. Sprocket Center. I ordered this kit from Sprocket Center. You have a bunch of different things to pick from. Of course, I'll post a link to it. I went ahead and went with the 530 BMXR gold chain. As you know, this is a gold and blue style that we're going for here. So it is X-Reel, it's either X or O. I think it's an X-ring. Yeah, XR. So it's an X-ring chain. Riveting, master link, any Harley's 530 chains. If you can even find a clip-on master link, you definitely don't want to go clip-on. The only clip-on I have is a backup when I leave my city, like faraway trips, like when I go to Taylor Dragon. I take that chain just in case anything were to happen. That's a quick roadside fix, and it'll get me by until I get to a shop or a place to put an actual chain on. But you definitely don't want to be rolling around full time with that. So it does come with a spacer for the rear. This specific setup actually contains Loctite, even though we're going to use my own anyway, and ARP bolts in black, even though the finish is wearing off on the black. It's whatever. Either way, ARP bolts are obviously better quality than normal grade 8 or grade 5 like some kits come with. I did go ahead and get a 22 tooth steel front sprocket, and I went with a 58 tooth rear sprocket. These are both steel sprockets, so theoretically with this bike I'm going to be able to set these sprockets and forget them. They're not aluminum rear or front. Usually what's kind of typical of the Harley scene is a rear, I thought something was wrong with my other bike. It was just like a weird reflection. Pretty typical to have a front steel sprocket and a rear aluminum sprocket. That way you replace your rear sprocket every so often. Just like you would on sport bikes too. You always replace your rear and you rarely replace your front. However, this bike being used and abused and kind of thing, you know, that kind of setup with this, I've not had any issues. I'm still going strong with, I think I got right around 4,000 or 5,000 miles on my aluminum rear sprocket right now on my Lowrider S from Speed Kings. That is holding up really good. No signs of wear or anything. I know my buddy treats his way worse than I treat mine as far as like wear and tear on cleaning and stuff. He's definitely harder on his, and he's got no signs of wear as far as I'm aware either. So wear as far as I'm aware. Odd. Anyway, the stock gearing for this specific setup in a gear or in a chain kit would be comparable to a 22 front and a 53, I think it was 53 rear. I'll post on the subtitles if I'm wrong. I'll correct myself, but I'm pretty sure it's 22 front, 53 rear. So for those of you who have been following along with this build, know I was debating on doing a big bore kit. I believe this bike I'm going to leave, at least for the next year, completely as is, and I just went ahead and bumped the rear way up. Now, could I have gone smaller in the front in addition? Yes, but I didn't want to go crazy with it. Eventually, I might go ahead and put in a Baker trans, have a 6-speed trans or something like that, just to kind of give it even more of a, you know, more range kind of thing, and then just keep those taller gears. Not sure, but I think this will be super fun, and I think is definitely going to give a lot of like butt dyno improvement. Like I'll definitely be able to feel this 5-tooth up gear ratio in the rear more than I would, you know, if I just went up 1 or 2. So it should be pretty cool. Couple things I did to the bike just to prep it before I started the video, but we'll talk about that when I move you guys closer. Something to mention also, you will need a chain brake kit / riveting kit. I've had one from Amazon that got the job done for a few different chains before. However, this time they sold it on the kit on the website from Motion Pro. Went ahead and upgraded. All right, so depending on your Sportster setup, you may or may not have to take the brake connecting rod off. I did because we're gonna have to remove this front, well in this case right now the front pulley cover, but it will be the front sprocket cover. So we're gonna have to remove this. I already removed this to make it easier. I already removed the belt guard up top, but that is because it was broken over here anyway, so I just took that off and trashed it a week or two ago. I did not remove all of the bolts because it's hard to get to this one when the rear wheel is off. We're gonna rotate it and get to that one, otherwise we're gonna have to probably drop the exhaust, which is a pain in the butt. But right now I'm trying not to do that, so the rear, you could keep it. It's not going to cause any issues, but there's no reason to keep it, so we're ditching that. I will also mention before I forget, because I did forget in the beginning, as far as like any interference issues or whatever like that, for this specific sprocket setup that I went with, we actually might have interference issues if I had a passenger peg setup. I do not have a passenger peg setup, so there should not be any issues at all, but just keep that in mind. If you do run a passenger peg setup, you're gonna have to go different sizes for sprockets, or what you can do is go ahead and get a chain bump stop, which I believe is from, I think Track or Die has them, either them or TC Bros. One of those has it. If I can find it at the time of editing, I will put it in there, but just to keep that in mind. I did go ahead and back out the rear spacers. You're gonna wanna back them out all the way, and I took out the retaining clip on the left side, so we're just able to drop this axle. Now what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna go ahead and take this completely off. We're gonna go drop the, or remove the entire axle, and the bike is jacked up. Obviously everything can rotate freely right now. So we're gonna go ahead and remove everything else, axle, and then we're gonna go ahead and start taking off the front pulley, installing the new front sprocket, and removing the rear pulley and installing the new rear sprocket. So let's go ahead and start that process. We are going to go ahead and remove this front pulley before, just because there's really nothing. I'm sure they make a specialty tool to hold this front pulley in place, and obviously you can put your transmission, but just having this front system, or the rear system, intact with it, I think is going to make everything a whole lot easier. So let's go ahead and drop the front pulley first. All right, if I did my homework correctly, this bolt size, or nut size, should be a 1, I guess there's no markings on here. Oh, there it is, 1 7/8 inch. Let's see if I did my homework correct. Oh, beautiful. Let me get my big boy impact out here, and we'll take her off. All right, so fast forward about an hour for me, no time for you. I ordered this on Amazon because nobody locally has a 1 7/8. Completely did not pay attention that I ordered a 3/4 size instead of a 1/2 inch. So went over to the local O'Reilly's, got this 1/2 inch 3/4 adapter, and now we're gonna be cooking with some gas. So let's get this front pulley off and make room for the front sprocket. Hold the rear wheel, and with this beefy impact should come off. It is reverse thread, just to let you know. There we go. Had to put it on level 3 instead of 2, but it came off. We are going to have to reuse this, so grab it out of your socket, and of course I'll post a link to this 1 7/8 in case you want this exact one, and for the hell of it I'll throw in a link for a 1/2 inch to 3/4 in case you have a typical 1/2 inch impact like I do. But this DeWalt, I mean, I'm impressed, but I'm also not impressed just because I expected that. This DeWalt sucker, this gets off everything. So make sure you clean up the threads on the actual spine of there and the nut before you put it back in. This is a little rusted, so we're gonna wash it down with some WD-40 as well. And remember, like I said, that is reverse thread. So instead of righty-tighty, that is actually righty-loosey. So to loosen that, you're gonna have to put it on clockwise. So, all right, let's get the rear wheel off. And on this specific bike, you actually do not have to cut the belt at all, so you can save it if you really want to. I'm going to save it just because I can sell it or whatever. So let's go ahead and get the rest of this setup off. All right, so we are going to have to, unless there's some magical way that I just can't figure out, we're going to have to drop the, why do I keep saying drop? Why am I talking like this? We are going to have to remove the rear brake caliper from the mount, but that's super easy. It's just two 10mm 12-point bolts, and then we'll slide this out. All right, so a couple changes. Well, I mean, one change, and then we're moving on to the next step. I forgot that you actually cannot remove the belt unless you remove the rear suspension. Yes, it's as easy as just taking one, either the top or the bottom bolt off of this tube. However, I really am being that lazy as far as, you know, this stuff goes. So I'm gonna use my cool new, and it is like new to the market and new to me, tool. I've used it a few times. Obviously, you can see how much crap is in there, but I'm just gonna cut the belt. I don't care at this point. I'm not gonna use it again, and it's not worth selling it and shipping it to somebody. So let's go ahead and cut this off, and then we'll tackle the rear wheel. All right, now that the belt is cut off, I'm going to kick it out of the way here because belts are for pants. Time to get this rear pulley off of the wheel. Course. All right, once we have, should just kind of, yep, there we go, pull off, and you can go ahead and place that off to the side. Now should go ahead and clean these threads. So let me clean these threads, and I'll clean the front pulley threads with my little nylon brush. We'll come back to installing the rear sprocket and spacer. All right, so this did not come with any instructions at all. However, using my expertise, the fact that this has a indent in there and then a lip, obviously if you were to put this first, there would be no reason for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the spacer in, and then we're gonna go ahead and put the actual sprocket in. Now it comes with blue Loctite, and it comes obviously with some ARP bolts. You know what? I think I'm going to use some red Loctite. These are some weird ARP bolts. They're actually like, I thought they were going to be black at first. I don't know if the camera's picking it up. They're like a dark military OD green style. I don't know. Very, very odd, but some black washers. Again, they have some blue Loctite included in the package. And I'm debating on just using some red. Let's double check that this is, yeah, this is blue Loctite. 242. So I don't know. I'm going to use a dab of red. This is going to be pretty close to a permanent install anyway, at least for a long time. So I'm not too worried about it. And even though red is not marketed as removable, you could definitely remove it if you try. So use at your own risk, depending on what you want to do. I'm also not going to torque these down to a torque spec. They are ARP bolts. I'm just going to send them home with a few ugga-duggas. Again, do at your own risk. This is my bike, not yours. Do what you want with your own bike. All right, now that that is all done, we're gonna go ahead and put the rear wheel back on the bike. I'm not even gonna show the install because you're literally just putting the axle back in. I'm gonna grease up the axle. Important to grease up the axle again, especially if it's dry. This one is definitely dry. So I'm gonna grease up the axle, put it back in, make sure to put all these spacers in the correct orientation and everything that was there prior. And then we're gonna go ahead and start tackling the front sprocket and the chain. See you in a second. All right, now it's time to put the front sprocket on. It's gonna go ahead and face in that way with this kind of flat face on the outside. It might be a little tough. I might have to get the rubber hammer. Let's go ahead and get the rubber hammer out. All right, there we go. And I apologize if there's a lot of background that you hear we're currently in the middle of a tropical storm passing through here. So, all right, go ahead and get some red Loctite on these threads over here, just a dabby dab. Remember, a lefty loosey on this sucker. All right, when you are tightening this, you are gonna wanna, again, I'm sure there is some sort of tool here. I'm just gonna try to wedge a towel in there with a crowbar, just to kind of hold it for support and stuff, and then obviously the crowbar wedge up in there. So, and again, I am just gonna send this sucker home. You guys saw how tight it was before. It is on lefty, which is lefty tighty. All right, so we're gonna reset up that crowbar and towel again, and just ugga-dug it one or two more times. Just make sure it's nice and seated on there. All right, now it's time to put that safety retaining piece on there. You're just gonna wanna line up two of these opposite sides with these holes. There's a bunch of different ways to line it up. There we go. And then apply some more Loctite. And these probably should have blue on them. I'm just gonna use just a hair of red, however, and just tighten these up real quick. And these are normal righty-tighty, lefty-loosies. And yes, there are torque specs for all of this. And yes, I did follow a bunch of the correct torque specs on my Softail when I did it to my Lowrider S. But again, this is just a different bike, different me. And completely forgot that that sucker was gonna go everywhere again. So just jam it real quick. You don't want to jam these too tight. So I did go ahead and put mine on level 2 instead of 3 for those, and that should be fine. They start to kind of push into the metal there and lock in, and then there you go. Your front sprocket is completely installed. Your rear sprocket is completely installed, which means only one more thing left to do, and that is get the chain set up. So let's break open the chain breaker slash setter slash all-in-one chain kit, which is super helpful. And let's go ahead and start this this chain process. All right, from the factory, your chain is gonna come with a bunch of grease on it to prohibit it from rusting and such, and being in a good first use configuration. Now, typically, I would take all of that gunk off of it before trying to install it and stuff. And you can see this thing is just covered. It looks like it's got diaper rash, and you just, oh, you guys can't see, now you can. But actually, let me just tilt you down a little bit there. There you go. There you go. So basically, this thing looks like it's been covered in diaper rash and stuff. But this bike has to have a total wash. Like, I have literally not washed this bike since I got it anyway. So it's gonna have a total wash anyway, degrease and everything. So I'm just gonna put it on, and then eventually in the next day or two, when I get around to actually washing the bike, then I'll actually be able to just degrease it and stuff as part of my normal wash and you know, care procedure. So what we're gonna have to go ahead and do is put this around the front and the rear sprocket, and then mark where we want to go ahead and cut, you know, break this chain. Something important to note before you do this, in case I forget to tell you, and you know what, I just realized we forgot to take this rear chain guard on the bottom off. So let me go ahead and do that before this next step. But something important to note before I forget to tell you guys is to make sure that your rear wheel is pushed as far forward as possible. You're going to want, your chain will stretch just a hair. These 530 chains don't really stretch that much at all. But it's going to stretch just a hair. You definitely do not want your chain to be set for its current length, like your actual length. You don't want it to be set in its very stretched out configuration. You want it to be as tight as possible kind of when it first starts. You'll see what I'm talking about when we go ahead and do it, but let me go ahead and move the camera in. Before I do that, let me take this last chain guard off real quick. You can see it's actually not that bad. We're not going to turn that much at all. We're basically going to cut this link, so basically just one link off, and then install the master link, so it's going to sit basically like this. And then just confirm, we'll put a little bit. All right, so as you can see, it's actually not too far off. We're going to cut 2 of these main ones off, even though, so it's basically going to sit exactly this, and then we'll adjust the wheel. Even though it's not really hard to remember 2 links, I'm just going to go ahead and mark the ones that we're not using anymore with that. And we're gonna go ahead and take this pin out so we can install the master right there. So let's go ahead and take the chain off, and I'll show you how we put the master, or well, actually how we cut this piece off. Now, you can use, in the past, I have used just a grinder wheel, and you just grind this pin off and then hammer that pill out, or pin. Why does pill sound? I don't know why I said that. You just hammer this pin out and basically just install it. But you do need a chain tool for the riveting anyway, or I guess you can use a hydraulic press for riveting if you have the attachments. But most people probably don't have that. And if you get an all-inclusive like this Motion Pro, or even the Amazon one that I used before, that was like 35 bucks. It'll break it and rivet it and push it all, all in one. And I will say that even though the Amazon one broke, it did get me through 3 chain kit installs before it actually broke. So really not that bad, I guess, in the scheme of things. So let's go ahead and take this chain off and go ahead and remove those 2 extra links. At some point you'll feel that it does get easier. That means it went ahead and actually broke through that initial, I don't know what to call it because it's not an initial rivet on this part, but then you'd just be able to go ahead and kind of easily go ahead and twist it all the way through. And the reason I'm making these noises is because I'm sitting at a really weird position, mostly just to try to get it filmable for you guys. There you go, the pin fell out, so I'll go ahead and back everything else out. There you go. Make sure that your O-rings or X-rings are retained. You can go ahead and toss this part out. And you're gonna grab your rivet, your master link. Why did I say rivet? It's not a rivet. You're going to rivet it. Your master link set should come with new O-rings or X-rings, whichever one you choose. And obviously the 2 pieces themselves. and some grease. Now, sometimes you have to cut. Nope, there's a little mark. I'm going to cut it and just get it prepped for when we need it. Toss this aside. All right, once your setup is complete, go ahead and make sure that you install the O-rings. Actually, I need to put some grease on before and after. Hopefully I cut it enough. So let's put some grease on before that O-ring on the left, or X-ring. My bad, I keep saying O-ring. And then we'll go ahead and put some covering both of these and the actual piece itself, and then come in from the back. Remember, the only reason I'm not putting an O-ring is because there is one right there from the last link that was there. Push it all the way through. Grease on this side. The whole chain process for the install is messy. I am not gonna lie to you guys. Go ahead and put the new X-ring or O-ring on that side and follow it up with some more grease. Now you're gonna have to put the actual top piece on. This already has links, and it looks like this is gonna be the correct way to install it on this side. Make sure that didn't fall off. You know, and push it just as much as you can by hand, and then this is where, again, your chain tool is going to come in handy. Well, come in necessary, I guess. Basically, it should be a press configuration. In this, it's super easy. You just match up these letters to where they read normally with where they're at on the actual piece itself. So before, you saw when we broke it, that B was where it said break. When we rivet it, that R is going to be where it says, or my bad, I turned it the wrong way. That R is going to be where it says rivet, and right now there's that P, and it's going to be where it says press. So you're going to want to make sure that this lines up in the middle. It has indents for where your pins are going to come out, because we're not riveting it, we're just pushing it on there right now. So make sure that it's on there correctly, and that this is seated on the bottom correctly. Go ahead and hand tighten it. I know this is not a great camera view, so I apologize, but you're gonna hand tighten it a little bit until it gets started. Verify that it is the same on the other side, that you have space, and then you're gonna go ahead and start to actually tighten this down. Now, when you are tightening this down, you don't wanna tighten it an insane amount. You don't wanna crush those X-rings or O-rings, depending on what chain you have. You just want to get it enough, and every chain has a set of instructions in it, I'm sure, that would tell you the correct amount of play to have in there. However, I feel pretty confident, you know, in setting my stuff up that I don't need to look at that. But again, you just want to have about, try to match, you know, if anything, try to match the rest. You just don't want to squash those X-rings and O-rings, because if you squash them, there's no place for the grease to go, and that's when you're going to start running into problems and premature chain wear. So I think we are pretty good on that end. I'm gonna go ahead and back it out, and I can confirm for you guys that this chain tool in general, chain breaker, riveter, installer, everything, this is a million times easier to use and better performing than the Amazon one. I would 100% recommend not wasting the 35 bucks and just spending, why did I say that so weird? Just spending the $100 or so to get this, especially if you're getting this chain kit or anything else from Sprocket Center. Just get this. I can't tell you how much easier this tool is to use than the Amazon one. 100% recommend. Motion Pro is a very good brand. So now you see that you have this pressed in. The tops of those pins are sticking out some. Now it's time to rivet those. All right, once you have your chain tool set up in riveting format, again, R matches rivet. There's this little magnetic rivet. This dimple is gonna fit into that kind of hollow end of the pins. And it's just kind of a magnetic fit, which is really sweet. So again, just make sure that your tool is set up in the rivet format. Gonna go ahead and make sure that everything is hand tightened first. Back that tool out a little bit. Make sure that that rear block is sitting in there. Oh, and that's what happens when you don't pay attention. All right, the back will fit into it, the slot, very nicely on that end. It'll have cutouts for the other pins on the other links, left or right of where you're working at, and then you're gonna go ahead and tighten down to start riveting. Again, this will be relatively hard to do. It is gonna give you some kind of feedback. I'm gonna move it down a little bit below me, but you can actually see, actually I should move you guys down so you can see a better view too. There you go, a little bit more. You'll see it start to rivet, and again, it will be a little bit hard to press, but it will start to rivet. You don't want to rivet this too much, because if you rivet it too much, it's going to push that link into itself, and it's going to squeeze that X-ring and O-ring, which is, again, something that you do not want to happen. You want the grease to maintain in there. You just want it to squeeze enough that it keeps that rivet or that master link on your chain. Go ahead and loosen it up now. Double check your work, make sure that it seems pretty well riveted. Let's move it back up so we can look at it. Yep, it's a little off center for my taste, but it did rivet nonetheless, so I'm sure that was user error. Let's go ahead and do the same thing on the next one. Sure it locks into place there. All right, and loosen it back up. Bring it back up, double check, those are definitely riveted. I actually smashed that one, that's probably not very good. I riveted that one too much. Hopefully it's not enough that I'm gonna have some issues. If I am, worst case scenario, well obviously worst case scenario, the chain will, you know, it'll break them, but best case scenario as far as like any kind of failure for the master link, you can just buy a new master link real quick and do the reverse, you know, everything I did all over again just with that master link only. But hopefully it looks like enough of it is fine. It's just the end part that's kind of lopsided or whatever. You know, hopefully we'll be okay with that. So now the chain install itself is done. Now you're gonna go ahead and have to set the correct, you know, length for your rear wheel. But I gotta go wash all this crappy grease off of my hands, so I'll be right back. All right, now that the chain is actually installed on the bike, you have to go ahead and set it for the correct gap. So first you wanna make sure that you have about, I would say about 1/2 to 1 inch. Every manufacturer is gonna be different. That's pretty much a kind of golden, you're okay if you do 1/2 inch to 1 inch on 530 Harley chain setups. So make sure you have about 1/2 inch to 1 inch of play when you push your finger up on the chain at the middle point between the two sprockets. The other thing you're gonna have to worry about after you get that set up is the left to right play. The sprocket teeth, and I know this is kind of hard to show in video because it's hard to get you straight up and down from it, but the sprocket teeth have to track in the middle of the chain. If it tracks too far to the left or too far to the right, it's gonna put unnecessary wear on the sprocket and the chain also, but mostly on the sprocket. And that's how you're gonna wind up wearing down your sprocket teeth even more. Premature chain wear, premature sprocket wear, and you're gonna have a bad time. So go ahead and make sure that everything is set up correctly with the chain, and then we're gonna go ahead and install the front, now the front sprocket, used to be the front pulley cover, and we are all done with this chain install. All right, so the chain kit is all done. Super easy install. I mean, you literally cannot have an easier bike to install a chain kit on. The only negative to it is that it is on the same side as your exhaust. So it's a little annoying to get to in some parts of it, but other than that, it's really not bad at all. And there's a lot of stuff that makes it annoying to get to. You know, you have to take the entire primary out. You're dropping fluids, you're replacing fluids, you're doing gaskets. None, and that's, you know, with any other bike besides the Sportster, really. So in the scheme of everything, really not bad at all. I'm super excited to try it out. You guys have to stay tuned for that video, my first ride impression / review kind of thing of it. The setup is really nice, looks cool. As soon as I clean this up, it'll actually look gold instead of like a creamy, milky, yellowy gold. So yeah, links for everything will be in the description. As always, check out the links for places like Tucker Speed. That will get you a 10% discount code for you, and then gives me a little bit of positive money back as well. Helps everybody out. They're good people, super good customer service. They carry a lot of products. I will link the specific chain kit I put on this bike from Sprocket Center in the description as well. Instagram, TikTok, playlists, builds for the Sportster build series for the Lowrider S behind it. All of that stuff are always linked in the description for my YouTube videos. If you have any comments and concerns, please feel free to comment on this video. It helps me out. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video, subscribe, all that jazz. Instagram is the easiest way to have a conversation, like an actual conversation with me. And until the next time, guys, ride safe, have fun. Dad, wow. Let's try that again. Thank you guys for watching, and until the next time, guys, ride safe, have fun, Dad out.